You're listening to Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. Gotcha, Ryan. You're just got you sitting down. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you had a glorious weekend. Everybody deserves a great weekend. I had a good weekend. We had a great show. We had a Stage It show.
Nice.
If you didn't come, make sure you come next time. That didn't sound good at all. But,
Should come every time.
Every last Saturday of the month, every last Saturday, we do a Stage It, a 2 p.m. show and a 6 p.m. show. So make sure you come there. And the band is Sunspin. We're at sunspin.com. You can book us, Zoom us, tons of merch, all that stuff. And our handles are at Sunspin Band everywhere. Last week's episode, I hope you guys loved Katie Sackhoff from The Mandalorian. If you haven't watched it or see it's I really enjoyed that one. That was a glorious job, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever have those days where you just feel a little off?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like you're just like, you're just, not that you're going through the motions, but you're kind of like foggy, a little foggy.
Yep.
Is it just because when you get older, you get foggy? You just kind of wake up sometimes and it takes you 7 hours to wake up. And by then it's already time for a nap.
I think it happens in phases. I'm having one of those weeks too.
Yeah. It's just a weird week, but
you wake up and you go, oh, this shit again, huh?
Yeah. I think that's what happens. I think also, my dog's just had eye surgery, Irv, and it's been really, really slowing down. And I got to start thinking of, down the road. It's probably the first time it hit me that my dog, Irv, I might sometime have to do what you have to do when the dog gets, put him down.
Yeah, that's no
the first time I thought that was last week, and I just looked at him and he was struggling so much with his walking. And I just started to go, he's 70% deaf. His vision is bad. It's like, when does it, he's really 13 years old. They live till 10 to 12 for this type of dogs. And you start to go, hey, I'm not going to torture this guy like my grandfather who died of Alzheimer's. I'm not going to fucking watch him deteriorate. And I couldn't do anything about it. Do you know how many times I prayed at night? I said, God, please take him peacefully in his sleep. He does not want to be alive. I know my grandfather. Please take him away. I would always pray for my grandfather to pass away because I knew that he would be like, what the hell are we doing? What is this? I don't even know where I am, you son of a bitches. And I feel like Irv, gave me that look a week ago. He was just like, hey, dude, this is kind of starting to suck. So be on the radar, have your radar on. So anyway, I love my dog, Irv, and I'm going to keep him as long as I can until I feel like he's had enough. And I think it's a mutual thing too. We both kind of like going, hey, man, this is like, it's enough is enough. There was a song in the 70s. Enough is enough is enough. I can't go on. I can't go on. Sorry to bring you down. Oh, my God. Hey, thanks to all the patrons out there, the patron love. If you want to join the fucking amazing family, I just dropped an F-bomb. I don't do that a lot. But it's patreon.com/inside of you, patreon.com/inside of you. And I always message you afterwards. And I just love the support from my fellow patrons when someone else joins and they're welcoming. And there's all sorts of fun shit there. And also new merch on the Inside of You online store. We got awesome white mugs. They're badass. You got to look at them. Awesome white sippers, tumblers. White t-shirts are coming and white beanies are coming.
Fun.
So the mugs and tumblers are here. They're really cool. We wanted to just try a different color because it's usually black. It's usually this. Let's go.
Try not to ship it with the new red wine is all I'm going to say.
Red wine. Yeah, that wouldn't be a good idea. We don't ship the red wine. You can't ship alcohol, can you?
I don't know.
You can shit alcohol. What are the handles for the Inside of You podcast? And please, guys, if you're here and you're in the mood for Zach Braff, I'd love for you to just subscribe and write a review on Apple Podcasts or watch on YouTube and subscribe. It helps the show enormously. And if you like the show and you actually at the end go, you know what, Rosenbaum, you did a good job, I'm going to subscribe. That would make me feel good and it would really help the show. So I hope you do that. What are the handles, Rod? Right.
At Inside of You Pod on Twitter, at Inside of You Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, youtube.com/Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum.
And it's right there. Right there. You can see it. It's beautiful. The graphics. Thanks to everybody out there for listening and continue to listen. And we got great guests coming up. Today's guest, I loved having him on. He's a neighbor of mine. I have only seen him twice in 18 years. So not that close of a neighbor, but a great guy, genuinely great guy. And after talking to him for the first time, really, you see how genuine he is and humble. I appreciated him being here. Some great stories. You know him from Scrubs and many movies. I mean, didn't he get nominated for an Academy Award?
Oh, Garden State was a big deal.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, and he just did a big movie with Robert De Niro, and the stories he has are just beautiful. Even stories about Morgan Freeman when he directed Morgan and Michael Caine.
Oh, yeah.
So enjoy this one. Let's get inside of Zach Braff.
It's my point of view. You're listening to Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum was not recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Look how professional you are.
Well, I have the rig. I have all the gear because of my own podcast, and I know what an ordeal it is and how much better it sounds when you have the real gear and then just over Zoom. In fact, I had the audacity to eat popcorn on our podcast, and my social media feeds were blowing up with people saying, "Please don't ever do that again." Turns out people don't like chewing in their ear while you're
that's the thing. You know, I always like chewing gum too, and I never understood what people are like. You shouldn't chew gum while you're doing whatever. And I'm like, you know, and then you hear somebody else do it, and they're a chomper. And you know what pisses me off? I'll just fire away.
Go ahead.
Is that, you know, I eat popcorn and I try to be quiet, but my friend Deneen has popcorn ears. So she's always like, Michael, I can't sit near you. Like in the theater when we used to be, remember when we used to do that? We used to go to the theater.
Movie theaters? The
ArcLight? It was so fun. But she would say, I'm not sitting by you. I'm like, how could you hear me? How could you hear me eat? I could hear you. My mouth's closed. I get so upset because I want to do the right thing.
I know. I knew it would be annoying to people, but I didn't think that people would be like, no, seriously, I have a problem. I couldn't listen today. So no more popcorn on my podcast.
Do you have anything that people get annoyed about? Is there something you do that either your buddy Donald Faison or other friends or your girlfriend, do they just get, I hate when you do that. Oh my God, stop it.
Oh, probably. I'm sure. I'm trying to think of what though. I don't know. I'm sure there's lots of things, but I can't think of anything off the
listening,
offhand.
For instance. Listening is one that I have sometimes an issue with. I try to listen, and my excuse is always, well, listen, when you have something really, you can't say that though. But what I mean to say is, look, when you have something that is like, I'm here for you. If it's serious, I'm here, I'm listening. I don't have to listen to everything. Do you listen to everything?
I have a pet peeve of being interrupted, actually. That's something I have with people a lot. And because I'm just aware that we don't listen to each other really that much. And so when I have Sean Hayes was once on an episode of Scrubs, and he jokingly said, someone interrupted him, and he goes, "I'm sorry, I'm not used to being interrupted." And I thought that was so funny. So I've stolen that. Like when my friends, when you're telling an excited story and someone's interrupting you, I was sorry, I'm not used to being interrupted. And that's a way of saying, shut the fuck up, I'm talking, in a joking way.
What's funny is that you just said that when you don't like, that's your pet peeve, you don't like it. And I looked over and Ryan looked at me like he knows that I'm going to interrupt you for sure.
No, it's fine. In this context, it's fine. I'm talking about when like you're telling a story or you're in a conversation, and we all do it. I'm not saying I do it as well, but I'm saying there are people that are egregious. I know I have one woman I know who the whole time you're in a conversation, she says something, and then while I'm talking, she's going, yeah, and I just that's a pet peeve of mine. I don't like that. Let me talk.
Yeah, that happened to me in New York. I was working at Emergency Skills Incorporated, and I'd call places up and I go, "Hey, do you realize when someone has a heart attack on the job that you have less than 7 minutes? Hello, emergency." You know what I mean? And no one ever, And the woman Lorraine, I think it was, who worked there, she would. I've never heard anything like this. I thought it was a joke at first, but I'd say, she goes, "Michael, did you call back the hospital?" And I go, "Yeah." And as I'm saying yes, she's going, I thought it was like a Seinfeld episode. I couldn't believe it. And I didn't know what to do, so I just got,
It's the same thing, man. I think it's a nervous tick some people have where they can't not be talking. There's also sentence finishers. That's a pet peeve.
Oh God.
They're constantly trying to guess what you're saying. And I'm like, that must be exhausting for you. Let me just I have the sentence. It's ready to go.
My friend Rob does that. And the thing is, no, I do it to Rob, where Rob will say something and I'll go, because I do know these stories. I know him so well that I feel like I'm like, come on, you're fucking taking forever, dude. So he's like, yeah, so anyway, and I talked to my dad, right, and his fuse now, his back's fused. He didn't have to get the fuse. He goes, no, would you let me finish? You know, you're 90% of the time wrong. And then I'm in an argument where I'm like, no, I'm like 85% right. So, but you're right. I should not finish sentences at all. It is rude, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, we all do this. I'm just saying some people are more egregious than others. And I do find that that's funny. Some with people in my life who are really bad at it, I'm like, your brain is working so hard to guess what I'm going to say. You've got 4 guesses out and they're all wrong. Let me just tell you my thought, and then you'll go.
This should be a scene. You have to write this. This is funny.
I know. I you know, like everybody, I always think, like you just said, like, oh, that'd be a good Seinfeld episode, or like, oh, that's the beginning of Seinfeld was so great because it could just take a little a little something that bothered us, and then make a whole episode out of it.
Right, for sure. Now I deal with anxiety and stuff, and I always talk about it on the podcast, but I read that you had OCD as a boy, and I had attention deficit disorder. Is OCD something that you manage? Is it something that you had when you were a kid? You lose it, it's gone.
I had anxiety disorder. First of all, OCD is a type of an anxiety disorder where and it manifests in lots of different ways for people. A classic way for children is tapping. That is to say, and I've told this story on my podcast because we just did an episode. We just went over an episode where Michael J. Fox was playing someone with severe OCD. I had sort of a more mild version of it as a child, where I remember I would have to touch things and tap things. And if you're wondering what the thinking is going on in the person, or in this case, the child's mind, I remember thinking, I know, even as a, let's say, 8-year-old, that this is crazy. But just to cover my bases so I'm safe, I'm going to do it. So an example would be, I'm leaving the room and we're going out to dinner, and I need to kiss the teddy bear on its head 6 times. And if I don't, something bad could happen. Something bad could happen to my family. Now, I know that that's a crazy thought, even as an 8-year-old, but I remember thinking, you know what, but just to cover my bases, just for safety's sake, I'm going to do it. It's a lot like superstition. Like, I still won't walk under a ladder.
Me neither.
I don't think that there's special forces that are going, hurt him now. But in my brain still, I go, just to cover my bases, I'm not going to walk under the ladder. And that's how at least that obsessive compulsive tapping thing manifested for me as a child.
Now, did your parents notice it? Like, oh, Zach's doing that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They brought me to a psychologist or psychiatrist. I forgot which one. And they explained it to them. My mom was a psychologist, so she was in the know about it. And then I think he said in some ways, he'll be dealing with some aspect of this his whole life. But it's manageable. And then I didn't think of it in the forefront of my brain, because the tapping, the sort of the most bizarre stuff, obsessively washing my hands, that sort of stuff I grew out of. But and then you just and then I just began to realize that I was a bit of an anxious person, but that just kind of went along with feel like the stereotypic East Coast Jewish guy. We were right. I was raised on Woody Allen movies. He was like the icon of being an East Coast Jewish American, and he was cartoonishly neurotic and anxious, and so I just thought it was part of being who I was.
Right.
And now as a 45-year-old, I see places where I'm possibly more anxious about things than the average human being.
Do you think you've gotten more anxious as years have gone on? For me, I felt like I always sort of think in terms of I had more energy. So, I was younger, my body could deal with the stress, it could deal with all these things. And then I hit a certain age and all this shit kind of added up, and now it manifests itself and then comes out in a different way, which doesn't feel as good. Sometimes, I don't feel as confident. Sometimes I feel a little bit just too much on edge. I'm a little bit wound up. the anxiety affects me differently than it did when I was younger. So do you feel that?
Yes, absolutely. It's the same thing. I think that it just found a way to peek its head out in a different way. There's a line I wrote. I wrote some of this into my film Garden State because it was manifesting itself in a post when I graduated college in a new way. And I was having these really bad sporadic headaches, and I did go to a neurologist, and they said in so many words, it's anxiety. There's nothing wrong with you. And in the film, the neurologist tells me, if you don't deal with some of these things, they're going to find a way of peeking their head out of the water. And so that's kind of how I felt, in my early 20s. I felt like that doctor as I was a child was right. I haven't really dealt with any of this in any way. And I don't really know how. I mean, I can go to therapy. I can do things that decrease my anxiety. But at the time I felt really scared and anxious, for lack of a better word, about it, and so that was one of the things that created Garden State. It sort of came out of all that.
Well, what makes you anxious now? What and what do you do about it? Like, what things make you anxious?
The way I would describe it is that anything that makes everybody else anxious makes a person with OCD or anxiety anxious. It's just our base is higher. We're starting higher. You can have like an adrenaline surge that's the equivalent of you were almost in a car accident over something that might make someone uncomfortable or anxious, but shouldn't warrant a giant adrenaline spike.
Yeah, I feel like my anxiousness this is why I get upset. Like if you're getting upset about something that seems somewhat significant, hey, I have to go do stand-up tonight in front of 1,000 people and I've only been doing it a couple of months. Okay, there's, it's warranted, right? But then when you start going, I got to go get the mail. I'm a little anxious about the mail. I mean, maybe not that small. I don't do that. But there's always a bit of anxiousness with everything I do. I feel like I'm always a step ahead. Like I have to hurry through things. I have to get them.
You're worrying.
Yeah,
Some of us worry more. I think there's some people who go through life. I always just thought everyone was like this. But I realize now at 45, there's people that go through life worrying less and being, I don't know, they can operate more easily in a time. I mean, this is just such this time with this pandemic and the economic crisis that it's causing, and and of course the politics, the president, and all of that. It's just such a fucking giant clusterfuck of anxiety for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's a very heightened time.
Yeah. You live down up the street from me.
We are neighbors. I drive by you and we wave. And we finally, we're finally having a chat. I'm really glad about that.
I am too. And it's rare to see you. And I look at your everything you've done, and it was one of those things where I'm like, this guy doesn't stop. And I always look at I said this to Dax. I've said this to other people that, you're directing, you're writing, you're doing. I mean, this list is endless. There's not. You don't sit there and do nothing, do you? Is it very hard for you?
Well, yes, very hard for me.
Why?
By the way, that causes anxiety for me. If you're asking what are triggers, my agent said it best when I was, I'm sure, frustrating the fuck out of him. My directing agent, I was probably bugging about some project I wanted to set up, and he was like, you don't idle well. And I don't idle well. I like to be. I'm happiest when I'm working. I'm happiest when I'm creating. When we do what we do, and you're basically a freelance creator, whether you're an actor, director, writer, singer, songwriter, you're always waiting for the next thing to happen. And when I'm not doing that, I'm not as happy as when I'm doing it.
But how do you handle?
I just did a 4-day directing job for an Amazon show. And it was like it's my only time I've worked during COVID, and it was all the extreme precautions and PPE and directing and shields and masks, and it was, almost silly sometimes the level of safety, which was completely appropriate, and I'm happy about it. But it was crazy directing in a fit mask and a shield and staying 10 feet away from your actor. But my point was the whole time I was there, I was so happy. I felt like a fish back in water. That's what I like doing. I like making things.
Now, you still have a girlfriend, Florence, or whatever, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You guys have been dating a while. Now, when you have jobs the next morning, like people work, they go to a 9 to 5, most people in the real world, right? We're very fortunate that, we get to go on set but still, with certain jobs, the work never dies. It never ends. So when you have someone or you're around your friends, is your mind always thinking about tomorrow? Is your mind always thinking about set lists and all the things you have to do? Is it hard to be present with someone? And that's what it seems like. If you're always working, then it's hard to just disconnect from it.
I don't really. I think we're both because we're both. This year doesn't count. It's funny to say because everything's got thrown up in the air. But traditionally, I think we're both been people who are excited about the things we're working on, and so we chat about it, and we want to say, oh, will you read this page? I wrote this today, and I think it's kind of the scene is getting better, or I'll run lines with her, and so we bring it into the relationship. We bring we bring it together, and otherwise you're off in your corners.
Are you a defensive person? Like I think I get sometimes defensive when someone says something that I know isn't true. That's the worst thing you could do to me.
I try to get better about it as I've gotten older and accept criticism and really look at the situation. I think that's something that comes with age, being able to go, okay, my first instinct is to be defensive and be pissed, but let me pause, let me think. Okay, I can see your perspective on that. I mean, this is after working on myself a bunch. Yeah. And doing sort of, courses and I'm interested in doing work on myself. And I had my stepfather was a psychologist, my mom's a psychologist, my stepmother's a therapist. So I've had a lot of this stuff in my life, and I'm always kind of working on myself. So to answer your question, I think my instinct, of course, like everyone else, is to be like, fuck you. But in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, well, zoom out for a second. What was their perception of it? How did it come across? Like, let's look at it from their shoes.
Yeah. Well, I picture myself as somewhat of a leader at times, but I do defer to people who are smarter than me, which is most people. And I a lot of times, whether it's a therapist and they say, when your mom asks for something or money or this, or she's crying about her, she has to get a mammogram and she's scared. And she keeps doing, you don't have to just give into this thing and take all this energy and just sort of like, it's exhausting. So she'll say something. It's almost like in therapy, I want you to tell me what to do. I want you to tell me what to say sometimes. And she says, say to your mother or other people that do this, I'm sorry to hear that. So I started doing that. And I was like, she was like, I don't know. And I was like, Mom, I'm really sorry to hear that. And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. You just said that. Fuck yeah. You didn't go on that. Fuck yeah. And then she's like, would your therapist tell you to say that? I'm like, God damn it. Shut up. So those things, I
think a lot of times people just want to vent. They don't really want your 2 cents. I find like a lot of times people just want you to be heard. And you just let them go and let them vent and you go, wow, I hear you. Yeah, that sucks. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, I can understand how you'd feel that. Yeah. And they just kind of want to be, that's why, isn't that what 90% of the therapist does anyway? Occasionally they'll give you some good tidbits and some good steering, but yeah, I think a lot of times I think I've realized that a lot of times people, when they're in a space where they're bitching, they don't want you to be like, here's what you need to do. Then they get all riled up and they're mad. They really just want you to listen.
See, you just gave me some great advice.
But yeah, I'm a better therapist than your therapist.
But I know certain people look at me afterwards and I go, I'm sorry. And they want you to kind of, come on, tell me what, and they look at you like, that's it? That's all you got? But maybe it's healthier. It is. Obviously it's healthier.
No, I think if they keep asking you, like, what should I do? What should I do? Then of course you can weigh in. But right. I think like, I think more often than not, and your listeners may disagree, but I feel like people want to be heard, and there's a lot. What they want is, I hear you. That fucking sucks. If I was in your shoes, you're justified in being upset about that. If I was in your shoes, I would be completely upset by that. My mom, as a therapist, as a therapist and a mom, would say to me something that I always remembered from my childhood, which was, she would say, you know, if you weren't upset by that, Zach, there'd be something wrong with you. And I've held on to that my whole life. I think that's really helpful, because I think so often we feel like we're not justified in what we're feeling. And my mom, as a therapist, sorry, my dog's decided now's the time to play with the toy right by the mic.
That's a cute dog. What's her name?
That's Billy. You've seen her in the car before
Billy.
on walks. Should we walk by your house?
Yeah, she can't.
I promise. I always curb the dog. If she poops outside your house, I always pick it up. Billy's decided. It's funny with dogs. I imagine if it's like this way with children. She wasn't playing with this toy the whole day, but I called you and she decided now's the time.
Yep.
Anyway, that phrase always stuck with me, which was, you know, if you're a parent, I think it's great for children. It really, because I always felt heard, for lack of a better term, that she would be like, I hear you. You know, if there wasn't, you're so justified in that. If you didn't feel that emotion and that happened, there'd be something wrong with you.
Inside of You is brought to you by Relief Band. Ryan, I hate being nauseous, man. If somebody could tell you you won't get nauseous, or I could help you with your nausea, whether you're, you know, people get nauseous. Women get nauseous for certain reasons. Mm-hmm. Men get nauseous. I get on a boat, I'm nauseous. Sometimes when I'm on a plane, I get nauseous.
Me too.
Because that feeling of like you're going to throw up, or you're a little spinny, or you're a little bit, it's the worst feeling. You know, that was about a year ago that happened. I thought I'd grow it out. I grow out of it being nauseous, but you don't.
No, it doesn't happen.
Nauseous happens forever.
Yeah.
Nauseous. Nausea. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. You can't focus. That's why I'm really excited about our new partner that we just joined with, and that's Relief Band. Relief Band is the #1 FDA-cleared anti-nausea wristband that has been clinically proven to quickly relieve and effectively prevent nausea and vomiting associated with motion sickness, anxiety, migraine, hangover, morning sickness, chemotherapy, and so much more.
The product is 100% drug-free, non-drowsy, and provides all natural relief with 0 side effects for as long as needed.
And you know how it works? Relief Band stimulates a nerve in the wrist that travels to the part of the brain that controls nausea. Then it blocks the signal your brain is sending to your stomach, telling you that you are sick. Relief Band is the only over-the-counter wearable device that has been used in hospitals and oncology clinics to treat nausea and vomiting. I can't tell you how much this really helps me. I can actually get on a boat now, and I don't have to take pills that make me really drowsy and crappy. I just put on a wristband. Sounds pretty good to me. Ensure nausea is never the reason to miss out on life's important moments. Right now, Relief Band has an exclusive offer just for Inside of You listeners. If you go to reliefband.com and use promo code INSIDE, you'll receive 20% off plus free shipping and no questions asked, 30-day money-back guarantee. So head to RELIEFBAND, reliefband.com, and use our promo code INSIDE for 20% off. Inside of You is brought to you by HelloFresh. I love these guys. If I want to eat healthy and I don't want to go to the grocery store, Ryan, I want to just, it's all the ingredients are there for you. It's easy to follow. I can do this. I know I can. And I did. I made pork and rice and green beans last night, and it was freaking delicious. I had 2 meals. Well, I ate a meal and then I saved it for the next day.
Nice.
I wanted to say, I'm going to say this at the end too, but I want to say this now because this is a blowaway deal. If you go to HelloFresh.com/IOU10 and you use the code IOU10, you get 10 free meals, including free shipping. How are they giving away 10 free meals? That's bonkers. If you guys don't know what HelloFresh is, you get fresh, pre-measured ingredients and mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. HelloFresh lets you skip those trips to the grocery store and makes home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's why it's America's #1 meal kit.
HelloFresh cuts out stressful meal planning and grocery store trips, so you can enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in about 30 minutes or less.
Eating healthier has never been easier with low-cal, carb-smart, vegetarian, and pescatarian options every week. No matter what you choose, every single recipe is packed with fresh produce sourced directly from farmers. Go to HelloFresh.com/IOU10 and use code IOU10 for 10 free meals, including free shipping. These guys are great. They're #1. So why don't you pick up the phone or get online and get it done. By the way, Ryan here, who you can't see, is my editor, engineer. He's awesome. I love him. And he's a big Scrubs fan. I mean, you have so many Scrubs fans, but I asked him, he says thank you. I guess you have headphones on. You could hear that.
Ryan, thank you very much.
But his favorite episode is the, go ahead, tell him.
Oh, it's Overkill, the one with Colin Hay at the beginning.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Thank you. We've been, so what happened was we were going to do let me start this.
Colin Hay from Men at Work, by the way, was on the show, and Ryan loves
Colin Hay, who was in Men at Work and now has an amazing solo career where he has tons of great songs you should check out. And he also, of course, does covers of the old Men at Work songs as like folk acoustic, and they're amazing. And at the time we were making Scrubs, a very long time ago, we had him on. We used his music, and then because he's sort of a funny character, and had been on, I think, the Larry Sanders Show as himself or something. So we had him on in a fantasy sequence, and he was wonderful.
Yeah. If I said I can't get to sleep, what would you say?
I think about the expectations.
I think it's implication.
Implications, diving in too deep.
And possibly the complications.
Especially at night.
I worry other situations. I know it'd be all right.
I'm telling you, have you heard his like solo acoustic version of that?
I had lunch with him last year. I've seen him acoustic a few times. I love his stuff. He's so charming.
I'm telling you, if you guys haven't heard, go listen to some Colin Hay. Like, obviously go listen to the Men at Work songs you might like that he covers, like Overkill. But I just don't think I'll ever get over you. It's just one of my favorite heartbreaking Colin Hay songs. Beautiful, my, it's a beautiful world. He's so talented. And when the world opens back up, go see him live because he tours, and it's mostly just him with a guitar. But he'll tell, most artists, they tell you a story about the song, and you're like, okay, get to the song. He goes off on the funniest stories. He's like a part stand-up, and you're cracking up about him telling these anecdotes. And he's done it for so long, just like a stand-up comedian. He knows what works and what doesn't work. And he tells these wonderful stories and then goes into a song. It's really great.
Yeah, he's a great storyteller. When you got Scrubs, obviously, I didn't believe this, but I mean, I believe it. But 6 times you auditioned for it, is that true?
Yeah.
But that's a lot. Like I can understand you go in, they want to see you again, and they want you to test. But that's 6 times. I mean, what did they want to see? What did they want to see from Zach Braff?
Well, that's a very good question. I think I was a waiter, and I didn't have many credits. I had only done a handful of things, but I had nothing they could really look at and be like, oh, he'd just been on this show. And I was up against a couple of known people that I won't say, but I'll tell you off the air. And so I was kind of like, I'm never going to get this. They're going to give it to one of these known guys. But then I kept getting called back. And then I got called back again, and then it was like a work session with Bill, the showrunner, and then it was okay. We want to see a chemistry with you and Sarah Chalk, who'd already been cast, and then it was. Then you know how the end goes. You then go in front of the studio. Apparently they're not doing this like they used to back in our day when we got going. But for those listeners who don't know, when you go to the studio, a studio test, you would then go in front of like 10 to 20 people, and it was so intimidating. Oh. And then if you pass that round, you'd then go to the network where there could be, I remember for Scrubs, it was probably 25 people packed in a small room and all staring at me. And it's like I remember thinking it's like the Olympics. Like, it doesn't matter how well you did it at home. It's like you do it now or you die. And it's a ludicrous process because I never understood why you're making the actor sweat so hard. They're not auditioning to be in a Broadway show, where they have to perform live in front of me. They're auditioning to be an actor that's great on set that cuts together well.
Right.
So why not now? At least when I've done pilots in latter years, there's more like, okay, we'll look at the tape. We don't need to have you come in and do this in a tiny room in front of 30 people, and it's so much pressure.
Well, it worked out.
Yes, it did.
How many seasons was it?
I did 9. We did 9. Yeah.
Good God.
I left a little bit early, so I sometimes say I did 8.5, but we did 9.
Now, obviously, you've directed a ton. You directed the 100th episode. You directed, I don't know, what, 30 episodes, 20 episodes?
No, not that many, actually. I thought it was more, too, and I recently went back and looked, and I think I only did like 7 or so.
Do you remember when you first directed an episode of Scrubs? Were you really worried about, it's like now you're directing these people you've been working with, and that's the scares because you want to make them think he knows what he's doing. Do you remember that first day? Or
yeah, I had tiptoed in because here's my tiptoe in was, well, first of all, Bill pretty much made fun of me like a big brother. Our showrunner creator has since become one of my best friends, and he's a mentor to me. But at the time, we had a very big brother, little brother relationship. He was supportive of me and he loved me, but he was tough on me. And I think he had an interest, it seemed, well, he's admitted it in the past, of sort of keeping my ego in check because he didn't want to have a kid who'd become super famous and cocky and ruin his life. So he would do things to bring me down a notch. And I remember that the line producer said that I could direct the music video for this theme song. And I thought that was so exciting. And Bill sort of made fun of me. He said something quip like, "Oh, well, that should make sure no one ever sees it." And I really felt like shit. And he did it in front of the crew. And I did it. And I said to myself, I need to crush this. I need to crush this to not only show him up and give him the finger, but also so that the cast will trust me so I could one day direct an episode. So I just put everything I had into it, and I made a really cool music video, which I haven't seen in years, but you could check out if you're curious on YouTube. And then what happened was Garden State, this was roughly 2003, then Garden State happened, and Garden State had a record sale at Sundance, and then he had to sort of eat crow and change his whole tune. And then he was like, okay, you can direct an episode. But the big brother didn't go away because he gave me an episode that was impossible to execute in 5 days. It was like epically huge and lots of locations and stunts and literally a night shoot on the Universal New York Street backlot with a stunt. Like as though he was saying like, all right, motherfucker, here, go direct an episode.
Yeah.
It was like a 10-day episode meant to be shot in 5.
I feel like that's an ego thing. And that's like I'm not saying it, Bill's a great guy. I've had other people do that to me. When I directed an episode of Smallville, and there were producers that were some people, they want to see you fail. They want you, or they want to see you struggle and see how hard it is to actually direct. They don't want you to walk in there and go, oh, look, here he's being given the keys when they've worked their whole lives to do what they're doing. And so when they say, okay, drive. Now, doing a TV show, it's a lot easier than directing a movie and hiring the crew because everybody knows what they're doing. And so,
right, you're a well-oiled machine by then.
Right, it's easier, but I think there is definitely that thought of, I don't know how many people in general, do you think people generally go, I want to see him succeed?
No. You know what my favorite Hollywood quote is? I don't know who said it, but I always think of it when this shit happens in my life. I go, you want to sum up Hollywood? It's like people want you to do well, but they don't want you to do that well.
Yeah. I can't even express how true that is. And
if you're thinking of coming here, just know that people want you to do well, but they don't want you to do that well. Yeah. I think that's why, and that's on a micro and macro scale. That could be your friend who's an actor who, they're happy you got that pilot, but now they're kind of pissed you got that pilot because everything's going to change. Or it could be on a macro scale of, the media and the internet builds up a new star only to just fucking wait 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to fucking drag them down.
Man, I'm glad you said that, because I feel that way. And I feel that way even with, like, it could be friends. It could be where they want you to be successful and healthy, and there's no malice. But they don't want you to get bigger than they are. They don't want you to get more attention than they have. And that is just innately some people. That's just, that's who they are.
I'm sure you, when you got your big break, had a few friendships disappear. I did.
Yeah, my thing is I don't change in a way of like, and I'm sure you did. I mean, look, you change because now I'm not living in a 1-bedroom with 4 guys. Now I'm able to have my own car, and now I'm able to. So there's definitely changes, but I would purposely try to do. I'm a kid at heart. I grew up in Indiana. I want to go bowling. I want to karaoke. I want to do stupid shit because that's what makes me happy. So I would go to the opposite. I wouldn't do fancy shit. Fancy shit is something I don't feel comfortable with.
I didn't do fancy shit, dude. I'm just saying that.
I didn't say you did do fancy shit.
You know what I bought? The first thing I bought was a shower. I went into Waterworks, which is a very expensive, what do you call it? Not appliance, fixtures. Bathroom and kitchen fixtures place. And I said, what's the most expensive shower head that you have in the store right now available for me to leave with? And they were like, this one. And I was like, I'll take it. It was the first thing I bought with my newfound money.
You know what I bought? Shit you not. There's 2 things that I remember. 3 things. I did this 7-minute scene in a movie called Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil with Clint Eastwood. He directed me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't invited to the premiere, but I thought I'd show up. And I bought myself a suit at Fred Siegel. I spent for jacket, shoes, everything, probably about $2,000. I didn't have it. But I wanted to look like a movie star for my 7-minute scene.
Sweet.
I guess. And I'm not kidding. I'm not trying to act like, oh, this is like, how could I make myself? I was dropped off in a cab in front of Warner Brothers. I walked there and I waited, and I saw Spacey, who's in the movie. Oh, Kev, it's Rosenbaum. He was like, oh, hey, how's it going? I was like, what are you doing? Are you coming into the movie or not? And I said, yeah, no, I am. He was like, no. I go, I don't have a ticket. He goes, you don't have a fucking ticket? Just come with me. It's fine. So I walked.
That's a good impression.
Well, thank you. And I walked in, and that's how I got in. So I spent all that money. That was one thing. So that wasn't really, I don't even know why I told that story. But B, I told my dad the first time I bought a Galaga machine, the full-size Galaga machine for $800. You know, the arcade game from the 80s?
Yeah, I bought arcade games too. I think that's like a
Silver Spoon.
Our age range nostalgia, like first giant check. You're like, what arcade game will I be getting from my living room? Mine was Spy Hunter.
Oh, I love Spy Hunter. Yeah. Was that the song?
No.
That's it. Also, I remember when Going in Style, when you directed that movie.
Yeah.
First of all, I was a little bit jealous. I was like, oh my God, that's one of my favorite old movies with George Burns and Laurence Olivier. And
it's Lee Strasberg.
Lee Strasberg.
Yeah.
And
George Burns and
Art Carney.
Yeah, thank you.
And so I was like, oh my God. And the movie was so fun, but all I kept thinking was, how is Zach not freaking out directing Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, Alan Arkin? How is he on set every day acting cool?
I was freaking out, dude. Every day I was freaking out, and I couldn't believe it. I'd made 2 small indies that I'd written. Wish I Was Here, my second one I wrote with my brother Adam, and they were all, they were relatively tiny. This was like a giant action heist movie with 3 big stars. I just kind of couldn't believe it was happening. And I'm looking over at the poster, which is on my wall, and I love them. I love all 3 of them so much, and I think at the time I just knew, like an actor, I had to play the part of confident director, but I was certainly a bunch of times having to give myself pep talks.
Well, what were to me, it seems like and I'm sure he's he's friendly as shit. I just look at him and I'm like, God, but Alan Arkin, right? I just picture him doing that. Why are we doing that for? We just did that already. I don't know what he sounds like, but sort of.
All 3 of them are big personalities, and it's kind of like it's an advanced class in directing. Because first of all, I shot that movie in in Manhattan and Brooklyn, and for the most part, and in the summer, and crowds form. I mean, crowds form when you're shooting anything in Manhattan. Not crowds. People are used to it. Hold on. Let me deal with it. Let me deal with the crying dog. 2 seconds. Baby, what do you want from me? How about out here? I guess it's good practice for a kid when you're like, how do I assess what the dog wants?
Right.
Yeah, I think this was it. I want to sprint in the garden, not watch you do a podcast. I'm back. So obviously people in Manhattan and tourists and such are used to seeing film shoots and everything. But when you're shooting a scene with Morgan Freeman and Michael Caine and Alan Arkin, like a crowd forms. And paparazzi come. And so I'm doing an action movie with seniors in Manhattan and Brooklyn in the middle of summer with crowds and paparazzi. And it was like, I just remember some days laughing, being like, this is like, how the hell do we shoot this, losing the sunlight? And there's like a giant crowd that's at least been wrangled to that corner. So we have to frame that corner out. But ultimately it was a lot of fun. And I'm really proud of the movie. I think that, I mean, I didn't write it. I wish I'd wrote it. Ted Melfi did a great job writing it. But it was in my audition, if you will, to the studios that I could scale up and make something bigger if I was given the opportunity.
Did you ever do impressions of them in front of them?
Probably not in front of them.
But now.
I can do one now for you. I remember Michael Caine coming to set one day. I have to get in character on Michael Caine. I just seen Hamilton, and he had seen Hamilton the night before, and he's coming and he said, "You're not gonna. It's amazing. This one's talking like this, and the other one's singing like this. It's amazing." He was like giving his Michael Caine presents Hamilton, his impression of rapping, which was pretty hilarious.
And then, of course, Morgan chimes and goes, "He's not going to be talking about this again, is he?"
Morgan,
do you do a good Morgan?
Morgan, hello, this is Morgan Freeman. He was my outgoing message for a while because he lost a bet to me, and in losing the bet, he had to do my outgoing voicemail message. It was like, hello, this is Morgan Freeman. Zach can't come to the phone right now. Please leave a message. The funniest story was that dude, first time I got them all in a room together at the Carlisle Hotel, this super fancy New York City hotel, and it's me. I'm in a suite that's sitting around a small circular table is Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, and Alan Arkin, and me. And we're just sitting there. And we just start talking about the movie. And I just can't believe how surreal this is, but I'm sitting there, we're just shooting this shit. We get to a scene in Going in Style where the characters get high. And Michael Caine stops and he goes, I don't know if I've ever been high before. I think Richard Burton got me high, but I don't really remember. What's it like? And then so I start describing to Michael Caine what being high is like. I'm like, well, you're kind of giggly and it's a little bit like being drunk, but it's a little bit more silly and I'm just whatever. I go on and describe it to him. And then, my eyes pan over to Morgan Freeman, who just looks at me and goes, I'm a pothead. Yeah.
That is really good.
It was Morgan's way of telling me like, I won't need practice. And if you look at the movie, if you watch the scene, Morgan clearly shows that he's had a joint in his fingers before.
What is the hardest thing about success for you? Like what is it that, because people say, oh, poor guy, it seems like you can't ever talk about problems because you shouldn't have any problems if you make a lot of money, if you're, you do movies and you do these things, we're ultimately lucky and grateful as we are. It's hard to bitch, but what's the toughest thing for you about, you've been famous for a while, but what is it? Is it just sort of, well, you can answer the question.
I don't know. I feel even stupid answering even after you gave your I don't know why I asked qualifier. I don't have anything to complain about. I think unless you're in the public eye, you could never get used to reading something false and mean about yourself. That some writer took a long time to write, whether it's a bad review or it's an article about you. It's just that I don't think anyone could fully digest someone or a publication publishing something super mean and or negative about you until you've experienced it. And if you're in the public eye and you put out things, people are going to write about what you're up to.
What's the one thing that hurt your feelings the most, though? Like if you read something about yourself and you like knew it wasn't true, or maybe you.
I don't want to call out a specific thing because that'll just call attention to it. But I just think, there's times where I'll read something and I'm like, wow, this fucking person got the assignment to review my movie and they clearly don't like me.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like my movie's shit. It's like I'm shit. And I just don't think I've been famous, quote unquote famous for 20 years. I don't think I'll ever get used to that.
Have you ever thought of responding to them like, what do you got against me?
In the beginning, I totally used, but back in the beginning with like the beginning of the internet and MySpace and Facebook, and I would, or even call people sometimes, I would totally engage. I'll give you an example. I will give you an example. I won't say the magazine, but early on in my success, I met with a writer who was going to do a big piece on me. And it was a big deal for me because I hadn't been profiled, before. And I spent the day with the guy. We had a blast. Went around Lower Manhattan, started with coffee, then got a few drinks, then just shot the shit. I'm sure this has happened to you too. It's happened to almost everyone I know that's been famous.
Yeah.
The article comes out and I look like such a fucking asshole. And I was gobsmacked. And I asked my publicist, I go, can I have that guy's number? I mean, I'm curious. I have to call this guy. And I'm like, dude, this is like a hit piece. What did you do? And he goes, full disclosure, I handed in the story and they said it has to have an angle. Well, it had no edge to it. It had no angle. I needed to find an angle. So this was what I had to do. And I was like, I learned a lesson early on. Like there's this story, there's a reason. If you look at huge megastars like Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, they never sit down for those things anymore. It's always Q&As. It'll say Q&A, Q&A, Q&A. Because they like, well, I don't need to do that. Why do I need you to go spin how our day went? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I learned early on that people don't want to read that me and this writer had a fun day walking around Manhattan doing like a pub crawl. They want to read an angle. They want to read an edge.
That's so true.
People want you to do well, Michael. They don't want you to do that well.
I don't want you to do that well. Inside of You is brought to you by Butcher Box. Ryan, I just got a box full of freaking meat. The most delicious steaks and chicken and bacon and pork. I was blown. I've never seen. This was the most beautiful box. If you're a meat eater like me, if you're a vegetarian, move along. This blew me away. I was so excited. I cooked a steak within minutes, and it was effing delicious. So it's very easy. Every month, Butcher Box sends a curated selection of high-quality meat right to your house.
All meat is free of antibiotics and added hormones.
Each box has 9 to 11 pounds of meat, enough for 24 individuals.
Packed fresh and shipped frozen and vacuum sealed so it stays that way.
I can customize my box or go with one of theirs. Either way, I get exactly what I want.
Butcher Box is a no-brainer.
And, with the Super Bowl,
The big game,
these guys are perfect because you can make so many great snacks out of all this stuff that they give you. And Butcher Box is offering 1 rack of St. Louis ribs, 1 pack of bacon, and 1 pack of pulled pork for free in your first box. I'm telling you, when you open this box, it is just marvelous. It's so easy to have Butcher Box meat just show up at your door. I open the door and there's a box of Butcher Box. Each month they send a box of the highest quality meat for a better price than the grocery store. This is quality freaking meat and a better price. You heard that. And also it's great to never be without something to cook for dinner. This Butcher Box, once you get this big box full of all this great stuff, is going to last you quite a while. And so you won't have to worry about cooking, and it just gets right to your front door. I don't think it could be easier than that. Technology, man.
It's crazy.
Life. This is what they do now. Butcher Box is the most affordable and a convenient way to get healthy, humanely raised meat. Right now, you can get a free rack of St. Louis ribs, 1 pack of bacon, and 1 pack of pulled pork off your first box. That's 1 rack of St. Louis ribs, 1 delicious pack of bacon, 1 pack of pulled pork for free in the first box. Just go to butcherbox.com/inside. That's butcherbox.com/inside. inside. Inside of You is brought to you by Geico. Geico's the place to go.
It sure is.
I mean, most people probably go to Geico.
I would agree.
I couldn't even name another place to go. But look, we talk about this all the time, but like, it's very simple. I own my home. Ryan rents an apartment. It's always the hardest thing to do is to rent or pay your mortgage or whatever. It's always what everybody's, it's the toughest thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard work. It's honestly hard work. And what's easy is that Geico has these bundling policies. So your insurances, you don't have to pay a home insurance for someone and then car insurance for someone else. They have these bundling policies, and it's very simple. It just seems like, why wouldn't you do that? We already have so much to do around our homes or our apartments or wherever we are. Just go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com. Even a Rosenbaum can do it. What do you do for fun, man? What do you do for what makes you happy? I hate that. That's a bad question. What makes what's fun for you besides work? What is fun?
I love, even though I just broke my toe, I love riding a motorcycle.
I didn't know you rode motorcycles.
I do.
Why was I Seinfeld there? I didn't know you did that.
I love motorcycles.
Why did you do
that?
That
brings me joy. What else brings me joy? Being with my girlfriend brings me a lot of joy. Playing with my dog. In normal times, going to the movies, going to the theater. I have a place in Manhattan, and I go there often and spend a lot of the year there in normal times. And nothing makes me happier than going to dinner and then going to the theater and then going out for drinks with friends after. That's like my perfect night.
If you had a choice to do theater, movies, or TV, that's it. You get one to do one. That's it. I don't care. That's it. One of them. What is it?
Well, now it would be TV because I think. Well, you're talking about as an actor or director, I guess, or both.
But then you have to choose.
Well, I guess I would choose films but I was about to give a qualifier that now everything's on streaming, but my answer would be a film, whether it's streaming or in the theaters. I love theater, but it's a lifestyle that's really hard. I did a Broadway show for 6 months. It was supposed to be a year, but I only did it for 6 months because it wasn't selling well enough and it closed. But after 6 months, I was like collapsed on the ground after doing 8 shows a week. So I love it, but it's not something that I have the desire to do right now at this point in my life.
Are you able to turn off? Let's say you do a show, it finishes. Broadway shows are like what, 8 o'clock, 8 to 11.
Yeah,
you're done. Can you shut off the next morning?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's why everyone goes and gets drinks after, because I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure, considering the amount of alcohol consumed by Broadway actors, dancers, and singers, I can tell you it must be not just me. It's very hard. Your adrenaline is going so strong, and it's like 11 o'clock at night, and your body's like, I'm not going home.
Well, what about the next day? You wake up. Are you thinking about that night?
It's a weird life, because then you wake up the next day and you have the whole day free, unless it's the weekends or Wednesday, and but you can't really commit to too much because you got to be at the theater by 7:30. So it's also really hard to maintain relationships. Your partner has to be down with that lifestyle. Friendships kind of go by the wayside because you can't ever go to dinner with anyone. You can't ever, unless they come to get a drink after the show. You never really see them.
Do you get nervous before a show? Every show?
Every single performance. Yeah.
Every performance. What time in the day, if you're going up at 8, do you start feeling those butterflies?
7:15. They start when you're in your dressing room. You start hearing them come over the intercom saying things like "half hour. This is your half hour call. Half hour, everybody. Good. Welcome to Tuesday, everybody. Half hour. And then you're like, that's when you're like, oh fuck, here we go. I gotta go do it. Every time I think I'm going to fail or I'm going to fuck up or it's going to go horribly wrong.
Do you ever go up on your lines where you're like, it's just fucking completely disastrous?
I have, thank God, knock wood, touch everything in the world. Not so horribly I couldn't get back or with the help of friends. But that's a huge anxiety. I mean, that's actors have nightmares about that.
What's the most famous person that ever came to watch you and you found out, oh, look, Keanu Reeves is in the audience. He's here to see you, Zach.
My man crush, Chris Martin, came. That was a big moment for me.
What's your favorite Coldplay song?
Oh, it's got to be Fix You. Because it's, I love Fix You, I think. And What If. and Swallowed by the Sea.
Who's your favorite band ever? Tough question.
I can't answer that.
I can.
What is it?
Chicago, probably.
Really?
I just
I'm
love.
glad you didn't say Steely Dan.
Well, I like Steely Dan, but you know what? Here's the problem with Steely Dan. Don't see them live because you'll get screamed at by people behind you with binoculars saying, sit down. So you can't ever dance or anything. You're like sitting there. I go, I got in a fight, not a fist fight, but I paid really good money to see Steely Dan, like $40 at least. And I'm there and I'm just going, I'm like, go back, Jack, do it again, Will. And the guy's like, sit down. And I'm like, I paid good money to come to a concert and have fun. Why don't you watch on DVD, asshole?
It's tricky. These concerts, these musicians that fall between, there's musicians that are clearly sit down performers. And there's musicians that are clear standing performers. The ones that fall in between, you're always going to have a problem with people being like, sit down.
That's true. All right, this is called Shit Talking with Zach Braff. This is rapid fire. These are my patrons, fellow patrons want to ask some questions. They like you.
Okay.
Nico P., if you're having an off day, what is something you do that helps you get in a better mood?
Meditate.
Does that really help you? Because I tried it for a while. How long do you have to meditate for it to work?
20 minutes. Use the app Headspace. There's a bunch of them, but I like Headspace because I like the guy's voice. Just do it 20 minutes a day in the morning. Not after you've had a ton of coffee because that defeats the purpose. If you've had coffee, then wait or do it before coffee. And do it 20 minutes a day for 5 days. I bet you'll notice it.
Wow. Leanne P., what's something that people would be surprised to learn about you?
I have my pilot's license.
Like air, like pilot.
Yes, I fly airplanes. I mean, I don't currently fly airplanes because I let my license lapse and I'm not current. But I did get super into it and bought a plane and flew around the country.
I could never be a pilot because I'm colorblind.
Oh.
But I think that, I'm colorblind. I mean, I know I'm colorblind. I'm just saying I'm sure that's.
I didn't know that was a restriction. I mean, I couldn't see why it would be. There's things that involve needing to see colors.
Yeah. When they're like, okay, there's blue lights right there. I'm like, which ones are those? To my right?
You're really colorblind. It's not like you can replace it saying, oh, for everyone else, my green is red or whatever. You're really colorblind.
Blue, greens, red. Yeah. Anyway, Emily S., did you improvise on Scrubs often?
Yeah, a ton. And that's a credit to Bill. I gave him shit for being tough on me, but I should end by saying I love him to death and he's one of my best friends in the world. But as a a nod to him, he was very, very free with letting us play around. And a lot of people's favorite stuff came from us just being, so close and silly. And the thing about Scrubs is it created such a safe environment. When you go into a job as an actor in a normal situation, it's like first day of school. You're nervous. You want to do a good job. You want to seem like you're good at what you do. And you're like, you don't want to put yourself out there too much. You don't want to overstep or be too big whereas after the family that was created in Scrubs, and I'm sure you felt this with your shows too, is that it creates an environment where there's a net underneath the line, and you can always go crazy and do whatever comes to your mind and just be fully self-expressed. And out of that safety, a lot of it will be too silly and not make sense, but some of it will be gems, and a lot of that happened on Scrubs.
Who is the one? I mean, I'm sure it's going to be hard to answer because you don't want to say one person, but who's the one guy or girl who made you laugh the most? It's just
Neil Flynn. I can say it. Everyone on Scrubs would probably say the same answer. Neil Flynn, who played the janitor. He's a hilarious improv comedian and a genius, funny person.
Do you remember a day where you just...
There's times in the script where it would just say, and then Neil makes up something. Because the writers, it would be like midnight and they'd be like, I don't know, whatever we're going to say, he's going to beat anyway. So just have him come up with a punchline. And it would say like parentheses, Neil makes up something funny here.
And he always would.
No, times 10, dude. He's the most quick-witted actor I've ever performed with.
What's the one thing that you remember where you just couldn't stop laughing? Like people were getting pissed because they couldn't move on.
There's a bit, and you can look at this up on the gag reels on YouTube, but there's a bit where the janitors wanted me to wear, his wife had made me short shorts made of the Scrubs material, and he wanted me to wear them. And I was like, I'm a doctor. I can't wear short shorts to work. And he said, but my wife, and this is all stuff he was making up. He's like, but my wife put a lot of work into these. She doesn't have, the good Lord didn't bless my wife with all 10 fingers. She was just born with pointer and thumb pinky. And he then proceeded to show how she made the short shorts using pointer and thumb pinky. And I couldn't get through it. And that's just him being silly and crazy.
Lisa H, I love the show Alex Inc. Such a shame it got canceled. I know what getting canceled is like. Great premise, great cast. Did being a part of that show inspire you to create your own podcast with Donald?
That's a very good question. I didn't know much about podcasts at all, other than the Serial podcast, which I devoured and thought was amazing. Like so many people, it was the entry into the podcast world. And then I got introduced to the story of Alex Blumberg, and a podcast called Startup. Season 1 of the podcast Startup was the inspiration for Alex Inc. And that guy's story, which is an even crazier story because since the show's got canceled, he sold it for like $1 billion, and now the character that I was playing is incredibly loaded. So it would have been a great season 2, but so I didn't know much about podcasts. Then the show got canceled, and the genesis of the podcast to do with Donald, which is called Fake Doctors, Real Friends, came because the 2 gals from The Office started doing one for The Office.
Jen
and they were
Fisher,
yeah. And people were approaching Donald and I because they know we're best friends in real life, and they said, "Would you guys ever want to do this?" We said, "Okay, sure, that could be fun." I mean, it was. We said we can't really do it when we're working, but when we have downtime and neither one of us is doing anything, we'll bang out some episodes and it'll be fun. We haven't seen these episodes in 20 years. Well, then COVID hit, and we were like, we have absolutely nothing else to do but this. And it became a great thing for us. It was like therapy because just like I am with you, me and my best buddy and these 2 producers who are super fun would just sit around and laugh and tell stories. And neither one of us were ever stand-ups, right? But with the joke structure, with the spine of an episode of Scrubs to use as a reference point, it was the perfect, format for us because we could just riff and go on long tangents. And again, we never thought it would be so successful, but it's been great. People really like it. And for us, I look forward to it because it feels like, oh, I can go see my friends and have a chat just like I am with you.
I love that. Fake Doctors, Real Friends, guys. You got to listen to it. Claudine, I love how Donald always says you won a Grammy for a mixtape. What's
that's true.
What's your favorite song on the Garden State soundtrack?
Oh, wow. I mean, God, what a hard question to answer, but I'm going to just go with the first one that comes to my mind and say, Only Living Boy in New York, Paul Simon. Because I never thought we were going to get Only Living Boy in New York. And, just as a motivational pep talk for your listeners, every single person I know said, I will never get those songs on that soundtrack. They were, if you're a filmmaker or an editor and you do a rough cut of your first assembly, you put in whatever music you want because you're not going to necessarily be able to license it all, but you just kind of want to create the vibe. The song will be like in the spirit of The Only Living Boy in New York. I know we won't be able to get that, but that's a placeholder. And then we filled Garden State with those, and every single person I know said, that's great, but you never get any of those songs. And in the end, after not giving up and really, really doing everything I could short of giving hand jobs, I got every song but one.
Which one didn't you get?
Fiona Apple's manager. It's not Fiona Apple's fault because I love her and she's such a talented human being, and I wish I was friends with her. But her manager was awful to us, and he was the only person that ultimately still said no. And by the way, who knew it was going to go platinum and win a Grammy and become a huge thing? She actually would have made legitimate money, but he was so mean to us that we eventually gave up. So other than Fiona Apple's song Paper Bag, which I then later put on another soundtrack because I like the song so much, everybody said yes.
Last question, Jeff D. Do you have any special charities that you're involved with that you'd like to mention? That's a nice question.
I just did something I really liked for. We did a reading of the Goonies, and Donald and I were were many of the non-lead roles for a great charity that I like called NoKidHungry.org. Obviously, helping helping make sure children don't go hungry during this crazy time. So nokidhungry.org is a good one. And I know it's reputable because the people that organized this reading did their research.
Comeback Trail, when's that coming out?
The Comeback Trail is such a good movie. And you got to see the trailer. It's on YouTube. I have a legitimately large part in this movie. I couldn't believe it myself, but it's me and De Niro and Morgan Freeman again, and Tommy Lee Jones and Emil Hirsch. Really good. I don't know, because like so many movies, it was going to come out this fall and got pushed to next year.
It looks so funny. Oh my God, you look so funny, that character, and you're working with De Niro side by side. Was that just? I mean, honestly, that's a question you're going to hear for the rest of your life. How was it like working with De Niro? Was he just kind of quiet, like, how you doing, Zach?
Very quiet. I think the first thing I was surprised about, and a lot of people were surprised about, that he's very quiet. When he's not between action and cut, he's the De Niro we all know. And if it's intense, he's intense. And if it's funny, he's being crazy. And it's a joy to watch. It's like, if you love actors, it's like having a front row seat at one of the best of all time. But then they call cut, and he kind of quietly goes back to his chair. And, we were in Albuquerque shooting it, and it was my mission that he was going to become my friend. So little by little, it's like someone in the wild befriending like a wolf. I like Dancing with Wolves. I was like, De Niro will be my wolf. I'm going to, little by little, I'm going to be this man's friend, whether he likes it or not.
So go ahead.
He's just shy. I mean, I think he's a shy person. And of course, because of who he is, everybody in the world wants to talk to him. And he kind of keeps to himself. And then, but little by little, we bonded and became friendly. And now we text. And
you text with Robert De Niro.
We do. In fact, Flo and I went to dinner at his house, which was just epic. And we sat in his massage chair. We both got massages from De Niro's massage chair.
Wait a minute. So he'll sit there and go, "Oh, you got to take a look at this massage chair. You're going to be, sit down. No, it's great."
Yeah. The squint. He's really good in the movie, by the way. I mean, the movie, it's frustrating because I haven't really gotten an opportunity like this, in that so much of my career has been the TV show and then the stuff I created and then a handful of other things. But I've never gotten an opportunity to go toe to toe with someone like De Niro in a way that I get to in this movie. I mean, I'm his nephew, and we're B-list movie producers in the 70s. You've got it. I mean, I'm not just saying this because I'm in it. It's really funny. If you watch the trailer, you'll crack up. The premise is so funny. It's such a crowd pleaser. And De Niro's never been so funny since, it was written by George Gallo, who wrote Midnight Run. So it's that style of movie. But anyway, it was just a disappointment because this was a huge opportunity for me, because I want to show people that I can, but no, be other things other than what they know me for. And this was a real chance to do that.
It's tough because you got it. Like you have to. It's not. Call it ego, whatever it is. It's like you're doing this for a reason. We're in this business because we think we belong. You hope you belong, and you get opportunities, and you succeed with those opportunities, and things become successful. Some things don't. But then you sometimes go, well, I never really got to do that. And you just always are waiting for more and more. And it's that insatiable, insatiable thirst of just, you don't, the wanting to prove yourself doesn't end. It's always, you want to prove yourself, not only to other people, but I know I can do this, but you want to prove to yourself, you want to prove to everybody, like, look, I fucking belong. I'm with De Niro and I'm hanging with him and I should be here.
And again, it's so, what we do when you're an actor, like, it's so rare that you're ever doing it. If you're a painter, you can paint all day. If you're a musician, you can write all day. An actor, it's like you're waiting for the opportunity to finally come up. You audition and you hustle and you memorize. I mean, even when you're not a struggling actor anymore, you're still hustling and trying to get an exciting opportunity. And then when it finally comes, when the stars align and there's trucks on the street and it's happening, it's just you really want to bring it. And this is, an older actor once said to me, we don't get paid to work. We love working. We get paid for all the fucking auditions you didn't get and all the times you spent a week memorizing those sides and you didn't get the part. That's what you're getting paid for. That part sucks. But when you're acting, when you're doing what you love, God, we should be paying them.
Wow. And I've heard it, but I haven't heard it. It's been a long time, and I'm glad you said it again. But did you audition for that, for the Comeback Trail? Or
No,
they just,
I would have. I would have in a second.
But they offered
George,
you the role. They said, Zach, we want you to play opposite De Niro in this big movie. And you were like a big role. It just came out of nowhere. And you're like,
I couldn't believe it. Well, my agents obviously did a good job. George knew who I was. George Gallo wrote and directed it. He had seen my work. I think his wife, I think, also was a fan of my work. It's always good when the wife or partner loves you. Yeah. And I would have read. I got the script. First of all, they call me. The agents call me and go, George Gallo wants to meet you for the script. I go, oh, that's awesome. Send over the script. So I start flipping through, and I'm like, is this the right part? This part's like in every other scene. And they're like, yeah, he wants to meet you. I go, okay. Well, I need some time to memorize it before no, he just wants to meet you. So I go to his house. He lives, up on top of the hill, and we just got together and laughed and just shot the shit and just, the guy who wrote Midnight Run. And, he's a very funny man. I just had him belly laughing, and I'll never forget. It was early in the morning, and his wife was still in her robe, and she's hilarious too. And she came in and she's pouring us coffee, and we're just high on caffeine, just cracking each other up. And he goes, look, I want you to do this. And I was just like, oh my God, don't fuck this up. He goes, the one thing is you got to go meet Bob for coffee because you're doing so much with Bob. He just wants to make sure to approve you. So I had met Robert De Niro just at like a cocktail party once or twice. Like, hi, nice to meet you. I think he knew my name. He'd seen me. Maybe he'd seen me in a play. We also, not to go on too long a tangent, but my stepsister, Jessica Curson, is a known stand-up comedian. And she was his coach when he did the movie about stand-up comedians. So we had Jessica in common. I knew that was my in to befriend him. So I go meet De Niro, who was in town, and for coffee. And we shot the shit. We told some funny stories. Same thing, kind of bonded. He just wanted to feel me out for a half hour, 45 minutes. But even when he was leaving, I was like, oh God, how am I going to know if he approved me, quote unquote, or not? And then he kind of winked at me and said, see you on set. And I knew that I'd gotten the part in that moment.
Oh my God. I got anxiety just hearing this story because I picture you're coming in, you're like, I'm meeting with De Niro. Okay. You don't want to be the guy who's like, I love you. I love your movies. He's like, fuck off, kid, let's be, we're having So you didn't do that. You just said, hey, it's good. We've met before. We haven't.
I know, because I've been lucky enough to work as a director and now as an actor with some of these old legends. So I know that like there's a time and a place where they're in a reminiscing space, but it certainly isn't when you're just meeting them. They, it's, talk about anything else. They don't want to hear about what you loved about Godfather.
But were you still, while you're talking to him, like when you're talking to somebody and you're still thinking about, this is Robert De Niro. Are you spinning shit out of your mouth going, De Niro, I'm talking to De Niro?
Oh, dude, the craziest part is when you watch the movie, there's scenes where he's screaming in my face. And I'm getting the squinty-eyed in my face with the mole De Niro look in my face. And it's just fucking epic, dude. I remember thinking like, I can't believe this is happening. And then there's a great scene. I have one scene in particular that's really big for me where I drive it and I'm fucking mad at him and I'm screaming at him and I slap his face. And I'm just like, this is fucking the greatest thing in the world.
Oh my God. To me, honestly, I could retire after. If that happened, I'm just done.
I know.
I might be done now.
See it. As you know, when we're actors and then you have no involvement in the post process, you just don't know how it's going to turn out. You like do all this work and then you're like, God, I hope they don't fuck it up. And this actually came out great. It's so funny, and I'm excited for people to see it.
The Comeback Trail, guys, watch the trailer now. I've seen the trailer. It looks freaking hilarious. I'm very jealous. Give me that quote one more time. I want you to do well.
But I feel like you might want me to do really well. The quote is, people want you to do well, but they don't want you to do that well.
Listen, I really respect you, and I want you to do well because you're genuinely, you could tell this, you're a genuinely good guy. You're a good person. I could see the things you tweet, people like you. If you hear a lot of horror stories about someone and bad things, you're like, oh, there's probably a lot of truth to that. You don't hear that about Zach Braff. You don't. It's mostly he's a good guy. I'm sure you've ripped people's asses out when you're directing.
No,
I'm
no,
kidding.
I'm a very good, kind person. I thank you, and same back at you. And I like that you're my neighbor. I hope that we can be real friends.
I hope so. I really appreciated your time, and this has been a real treat for me. And what's your handle, just so people can follow you more? You need
just
more.
My name at Zach Braff, ZachBraff on both Instagram and the Twitter.
Cool. When you direct something, I got an album coming out. I'm going to throw it at you, buddy. You're gonna.
I'd love that. I have a new screenplay. One thing that came out of COVID is that I have a new. I forced myself to write, which is always hard for me. It's always a process, and I have a new film I'm going to direct, hopefully next year.
Fantastic. Well, you
got the exclusive here on your show.
You hear that, guys? All right. Well, if you need an actor, I'm about 100 houses down.
All right. Yeah. 100 houses down.
Hey, thanks for allowing me to be inside of you. You're the best, man. This has been awesome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I really enjoyed that interview and the story with Robert Deniro. My voice. Robert Deniro in the massage chair.
Uh-huh.
I just keep going, wow, man. How great would it be? You know, zero gravity. If you want to, the whole thing with the. I don't do a De Niro, but actually, if you don't look at me, does it kind of sound like him? I don't know. You're doing this.
No, your face is doing like 90% of the work.
You're doing this thing with. I don't know. No good.
I need to be looking at you because it is here. It's mostly De Niro is mostly a visual
breathes
impression.
a lot. You know.
Yeah.
Every time you say this, it's nasally. I don't know.
I got nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
Could you? Is that from Analyze This?
No, Meet the Parents.
Meet the Parents. That's what I meant.
Parents.
A big thanks to Zach Braff for being on the show. Hopefully he'll come back. We've got great episodes coming up. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Just go to Apple Podcasts, write a review, and on the YouTube, you could subscribe and comment. I read comments. I respond. In fact, I respond a lot to comments. And if you want to really leave an email, just, at hello@insideofyoupodcast.com. And I check them. I don't respond always because, it's impossible. But if you order something on the online store, by the way, and then you send a message there and you're like, oh, I want to cancel my order, it's kind of too late. I send things fast. People want to get things fast. And remember, if you want to really join want to be a groupie for the band, we'd love to have you. Our spinners. The band is Sunspin. You could be our spinners. At Sunspin Band, our handles. Please follow us, and sunspin.com. You can get merch, Zooms. You could book us for a picnic, all sorts of fun shit, and merch, and also the Inside of You online store. You can get all the Inside of You stuff. Why don't we give a shout out to my lovable patrons?
Let's do it.
There we go. Should I do an impression this time when I'm doing it?
Sure.
What should I do?
Walking.
That's
because you did it earlier today.
Nancy D. Leah S. Trisha F. Sarah V. Little Lisa Yukiko. Jill E. Brian H. Lauren G. Nico P. Robin S. Jerry W. Emily K. Robert I. Jason W.
De Niro.
Stephen J. Is it J? Kristen K, Amelia O, Allison L, Jess J, Lucas M, Raj. There it is.
Ooh.
Raj G, Joshua D, Emily S, CJP, Samantha M, Jennifer N, Jackie P. Who else?
Morgan Freeman.
Stacy L, Carly H. Is that terrible?
You did a good one in the interview.
When I first met Andy, Janelle B, Carrie B, Tabitha 272, not to be confused with.
Just Tabitha 273. I'm not going to do it back.
Ashley Ryan, Kimberly E, Crystal H, Mike E, Marissa N. All right, give me another one.
Do you do Seinfeld, or do you accidentally do Seinfeld?
Eldon Supremo? I don't do Seinfeld. Thurston Howell, Eldon Supremo, Jack S, Ramira, Gilligan, Malkovich.
Yeah.
Beth B, Santiago M, Sarah F, Chad W, Leanne P, Roshan, Rashan, Ray A, Maya P, Maddie S, Tiffany I, Kendrick F, Ashley E.
Something like that.
Did you do Nick Cage?
No. How about the guy from Silence of the Lambs? Shannon D, Matt W, Belinda N. Wait. We got Kevin V here, James R, Chris H, Anusha W, Osborne. You got Osborne H, Amy C, Dave H, Samantha S, Spider-Man Chase, Sheila G, Ryan H, Alyssa C, Tabitha T, Misha H, Deb A, Tom N, Natalie 622, not to be confused with
Natalie 623.
Suzanne B, Henry S, Katie F, Liliana A, Michelle K, Marcus W, Hannah B. What are you doing with Owen Wilson here with Michael S, Talia? Wow, that's great. Talia M, Luke H, John S, Andrew T, Christy S, Claire M, Liz J, Laura L, Chad B, Rachel E, Nathan E, Brandel D, and Taylor K. I love you guys, and thank you for the support, as always. I hope you enjoyed Zach Braff. If you did, please, again, subscribe and listen to us next week. We have another great guest, and always love being here with my friend Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess thanks for allowing me to be inside of each and every one of you. Ryan, little wave.
Yeah.
What song are we playing over here? From my band Sunspin.
This is one of the new ones.
This is The Show. Thanks, guys.
Said too much. Oh, it's not